With episode Heresy releasing in just a few short days, I wanted to take the time to cover a few builds that I think will be really strong in the upcoming episode. I'm choosing to highlight these builds as they are going to have a lot of synergy with the upcoming artifact that we'll be getting, plus some new aspects will make new combinations that we've never seen before. I'll be sure to go over all the important details you need to know for these builds, and in the description below I'll provide the dim links. So with that being said, I'm SniperKH and let's get into the video. I want to start by talking about the warlocks, as my warlocks don't have a very new build, but instead they have the return of an absolutely busted build with some new options. I wanted to highlight the Arc Warlock Coldheart build that dominated Season of the Deep back in 2023. This build was dominant due to how quickly you'd get your abilities back and how effortless this build was to use. The subclass setup, you'll want to run Chaos Reach for your super, as it's just by far the best supers warlocks have available to them. For rifts and melees, run whichever one you'd like to run. For grenades, I found pulse grenades and lightning grenades to be the best, so pick which one of those two you prefer. For aspects, I'd recommend Arc Soul to give you an Arc Buddy that can do great for ad clear, and Electrostatic Mine to generate ionic traces from abilities. For fragments, I'd suggest Spark of Beacons to allow your Arc special weapon to blind, which will be very important later on. Spark of Ions for more ionic traces from jolted targets. Spark of Discharge for even more ionic traces from weapon final blows. And Spark of Shock to grant your grenades the ability to jolt, which will provide synergy with Spark of Ions and will give you the ability to stun overload champions. For weapons, I'd recommend Coldheart is required, as Coldheart will pump out ionic traces while the trace beam is fully charged. Otherwise, you can opt for whatever weapons you want, but I would choose Bittersweet to have a good boss damage weapon. For exotic armor, you will have three choices. The first choice will be Fallen Sunstar, as that will grant you more ability energy from ionic traces. It will grant your teammates ability energy when you pick up ionic traces, which would create a support synergy for your team. The second option would be Sanguine Alchemy, as this chest piece will mark a target when you use your rift. It will grant you 4 stacks of Arc Weapon Surge, as you'll be using an Arc Super. This option would be the best if you're opting for a more boss optimized DPS approach for this build. The third and final option would be Geomag Stabilizers, as this will allow you to get Chaos Reach significantly faster from ionic traces. It will grant max stacks of Bolt Charge faster once you've hit 6 stacks from sprinting. For me personally, I find that Fallen Sunstar will be the go-to, but if you choose to use this build for boss encounters, you could opt to have a pre-made loadout ready to go that would simply switch Fallen Sunstar out for Sanguine Alchemy. For mods, Ashes to Assets, Firepower, Arc Weapon Surges, Innervation, Bomber, and Powerful Attraction are all great mods to pair with this build. Furthermore, thanks to the upcoming artifact, you can also use Dielectric for bonus bolt charge stacks from arc debuffs targets defeats, and flashover to increase the damage that lightning strikes does when you get the max stacks of bolt charge. I truly believe that this build will be powerful in Heresy, so you'll definitely want to have this build ready to go for day 1. Moving on to my Titans, the build I came up with will actually see the newest aspect getting some love. You'll want to use the Arc subclass for this build, as that'll give you access to Storm's Keep, which is the newest aspect, but more on that in a moment. For your super, I'd recommend Thunder Crash, as it's a great super for boss DPS and bursting an important target down. From there, you'll want to run Rally Barricade for the bonus bolt charge stacks you'll get from Storm's Keep. I'd then recommend Thunderclap, and I'll elaborate more on this pick in just a moment. For your grenade, it's a personal preference once again, but I like Lightning Grenade for this build. For aspects, Knockout will be great to grant bonus damage from your melee and to get health back on melee kills, but more importantly, we'll be running Storm's Keep. Storm's Keep grants you and your allies stacks of bolt charge when you use your class ability, and since I recommended the use of Rally Barricade, you'll continue to gain stacks of bolt charge over time while standing behind the Rally Barricade. Additionally, Bolt Charge will proc from arc weapon damage as well, rather than only proccing on ability damage. Using this will give you and your teammates some extra damage for when you're in a damage phase against a boss, which could be super helpful in the Sundered Doctrine dungeon that drops this upcoming Friday. For fragments, we'll be running Spark of Focus to get bonus class ability regen while sprinting, Spark of Discharge for a chance of ionic traces on arc weapon kills, Spark of Shock to allow your grenades to jolt, and Spark of Resistance to give you bonus damage resistance when surrounded. For exotics, I'd highly recommend running Point Contact Cannon Brace, as it will make Thunderclap much stronger and will pair well with one of the artifact mods. If you don't want to run Point Contact Cannon Brace, then Heart of Inmost Light or Cuirass of the Falling Star will be just fine. For weapons, I'd focus on arc weapons that can also jolt enemies. My suggestions would be Nauseous Vetiver from Revenant Activities, Via's Pyroelectric Propellant from Vesper's Host, and Corrasion from Echo's Activities. You could also pair this build with Thunderlord or Grand Overture to have a DPS option that even the most casual players can execute easily. For mods, hands-on, heavy-handed invigoration, insulation, outreach, and powerful attraction will take this build to the next level. I'd also recommend pairing this build with Dielectric for bonus bolt charge stacks and Flashover for bonus damage on bolt charge lightning strikes. I truly believe this build will be a best of both worlds build that you'll want to try when Heresy releases. For the final build that I'll be covering today, we have Hunters, and I wanted to highlight a Void Hunter build because despite the new Arc keyword, this artifact has a surprising amount of Void focused mods. When looking deeper into the subclass, I'd recommend running Deadfall Tether as your super. For dodge, you'll want to run Gambler's Dodge for the free melee charge when dodging nearby enemies. For grenades, I'd personally recommend running Vortex Grenades as I believe they're the best Void grenade to use. For aspects, Trapper's Ambition will be a good pick for what we're going for, and the newest Hunter aspect, On the Prowl, will also be great. On the Prowl will mark a target for you and your team to kill when you're invisible. If that target is killed, it will create a cloud of smoke that you and your teammates can run through to gain invisibility. I predict this aspect will have some fantastic synergy with the exotic armor piece I've chosen for this build. For fragments, Echo of Harvest will be nice to create an easy orb of power, Echo of Undermining to allow your grenades to weaken targets, Echo of Starvation to grant Devour when you pick up an orb of power, and Echo of Instability to grant volatile rounds when you get a kill with your grenade. For the exotic, I'd highly recommend using Omnioculus. Omnioculus will grant you and any teammate that gets invisibility from you ×4 resist, which translates to 50% damage resistance. Additionally, you'll get melee energy back when you make teammates go invisible, which could also have some synergy with On the Prowl. If so, you'll literally never run out of melee energy with this build. I also do want to mention that while some of you would think that Gerfalcons would be the obvious choice to use here, the artifact gives you the ability to have Gerfalcon's main functionality without using the exotic, so I thought I'd spend my exotic slot somewhere a little more useful. In terms of weapons, you have a wide slew of weapons that will work well with this build, but some of my favorites are the Recluse from Vanguard's Onslaught, Ancient Gospel from Garden of Salvation, VS Velocity Baton from Vesper's Host, Reckless Oracle from Garden of Salvation, and Hardlight. If you're unaware as to why I'm recommending Hardlight, check out my latest video for an explanation. When it comes down to the mods, Ashes to Assets, Firepower, Innervation, Bomber, and Powerful Attraction are my choices, as your grenades will be the main ability you'll be using for getting kills. For the artifact, you'll find great synergy with using Volatile Marksman, which will grant your Void weapons volatile rounds when landing rapid Void precision hits or rapid Void kills. Maligned Harvest, which will cause your next Void damage instance to weaken enemies after you've rapidly applied Volatile, and Void Flux, which will apply Volatile to nearby targets when you defeat a weakened enemy. With the combination of all of these weapons, mods, and subclass setup, I truly believe that this build will be unbelievable when Heresy releases. Well, that'll wrap up today's video. If you found it helpful, a like rating would be greatly appreciated, and consider subscribing to the channel for more Destiny 2 content dropping soon. If you'd like to come catch me live, then you can do so over at twitch.tv/SniperKH_, where I'll be live streaming the new episode and the new dungeon when it releases this Friday. Otherwise, check out my other social media platforms linked in the description below for updates on when I upload and go live. With that being said, I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.